Finally, you can finally hear me. I hope this doesn't annoy anyone, but I'm just going to have it on because my microphone sometimes disconnects and I can't even tell. So I'm not going to risk that, at least not today. Right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of this series called Skincare with Saibs, while I do my skincare, while we talk about a story from history, could be drama, could be a story that you share with me. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about someone that I am personally very interested in. I was fascinated by some of the findings when I was doing the research for this episode. So let's dive in. Just a few quick disclaimers. If I look down, it's probably just because my notes are there. This is my very first episode doing long form sit down and chats. So I'm going to be looking down a lot at my notes. I hope you don't mind that. I also going to have to keep this on all time. Let me just see if I can put the other one on. Maybe you won't be able to see it. Is that better? I don't know. Do you guys think that that's better? Let me know, maybe for the future. So let me ask you this question. When someone asks you, who's the richest man to ever live, you might want to jump in and say, I don't know, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, but you would be way off. If we're talking like modern times, yes, absolutely. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. I mean, Forbes list does not fail to remind us who's the richest man on earth every year. But ever lived, like throughout humanity? This title, my friends, belongs to Mansa Musa. It's speculated that he's 2 times wealthier than Jeff Bezos. His wealth equates Elon Musk, Jack Ma, Warren Buffett, and Mark Zuckerberg's wealth all put together. And today, I want to talk about that wealth, and I want to talk about how he single-handedly destabilized a country's economy, just passing through, just another day for him. I also want to talk about the not so nice parts, like how Timbuktu in Mali fell and became one of the poorest countries after him. Since this is Skincare with Saibs, I'm going to be doing my skincare while I tell you the story today. So I want to quickly show you what I'm doing today. So I'm going to be using this cleansing water as a toner. I'm going to follow it up with a scrub, a face gel / scrub. Like a peeling gel that helps you peel the dead skin. I'm going to add my favorite snail moisturizer, and I am going to be using this eye cream that I have been using for the past few days to help with my dark circles, and I'm going to be using this to massage my face. I actually don't know what it's called. Alright, let's start with a quick story on who is he and how he got to the position that he was in. So basically in Mali, Mansa means emperor or king, and Musa was an heir to the throne, kind of like Harry and William situation. So he was the Harry in this situation. However, his older brother decided to fulfill his curiosity and I suppose find the Americas of today, but he didn't know at the time that there was Americas. He just had a ship fleet of thousands of men because they were the sultans or the emperors of Mali. I don't remember exactly what it was, like a huge number of men, and decided to go across the sea. However, the sea was not as friendly or as nice as it is today. That's a very bold statement. The sea is never nice. But basically, the sea wasn't kind to his brother, and sadly, his brother passed away or never came back. No one knows what happened. Maybe they found the Americas and they started something there and we don't know about it. They just never came back. So who, in this case, was the person to take over the throne after him? Mansa Musa. And that's how he got to the throne. Now that we know how he got to the throne, let's talk about Mali and how rich was the country at the time he came to the throne. Mansa Musa came to the throne during the golden age of African trade. If you look at the map, Mali was at the center of the golden trade route back in the day. It's such a shame that African history is not taught as much throughout the world, but there was a time where Africa was flourishing and Africans were very rich. At the time, Europe lacked the natural resources to manufacture products. So that gave Africa and African lots of economical powers, since they are the one who had the natural resources and traded it for money. By the way, I also have my mirror here in case you're wondering why I keep looking down. Anyway, back to Mali. Due to the strategic position of Mali and the main national resource that they had, which was the money maker, gold, the sultans and what they called Mansa gained a lot of wealth. Hear me out. Gold brought lots and lots of money. We all know that gold is expensive. And yes, Mansa Musa was famous for that. But what a lot of people seem to forget is that he also had another powerful natural resource. Some may even argue that it's way more valuable than gold. Can you guess what it is? Yes, salt. It was so valuable that sometimes it was used as a form of payment. Back in the day, they used to use salt for food, and they also used it for disinfecting basically sick people or injuries, and they also used it for preservation. They didn't have fridges at the time, so they had to keep the food fresh somehow, and salt was a very important factor in this equation. I am making a mess everywhere. By the way, fun fact, selling salt at the time was almost like selling a controlled drug nowadays. Basically, both sides would agree on a location to meet where this transaction will take place, and then they will stand as further apart from each other as they can while still seeing each other. One person will approach and stand in the middle, leave the salt there, and then go back, right? And then the other side would come, check the salt, see if it's the right amount that they want. And if it is, then they would take it, put the money, and leave. And if it's not, they will just leave, and basically indicating that they need more salt for the money that they have. I found that very interesting, but it was done in that way so no one side would betray the other side. I am so making a mess with this scrub right here. Okay, so with both major resources in his back pocket, Mansa Musa's wealth was a story to be told around Africa. Europe at the time and Asia, aka the rest of the world, had no idea who this man is. And America at the time wasn't even discovered. This was early 13th century, and America was only discovered in the 15th century. But yeah, the rest of the world did not know much about Mansa Musa, and he did not like that. So Mansa Musa was like, wait, there are countries in this world that don't know about me? Cue the biggest PR campaign in the world. All right, so I'm going to quickly go wash my face and come back to tell you about this massive PR campaign. You guys need to get on this, because look at this. And now we're ready for the mask and the next part of the story. Let's go. The biggest PR campaign in history. The most expensive, for sure, according to me. But you'll see now why it's the most expensive one. So basically, Mansa Musa is Muslim, right? At the time, he was Muslim, and majority of people in Mali were following Islam. So he decided to go to Hajj. And this Hajj would go down as the greatest Hajj of all time and the greatest PR campaign of all time. This Hajj took over 2 years to prepare and a full year to complete. And quick explanation for those who don't know what Hajj is. Hajj is the greatest Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca that Muslims have to do at least once in their lives, if they can afford to, and it's one of the 5 main pillars of Islam. It usually happens during the latter months of the year. Alright, let me just quickly wash my hands for this next part because it's about to get juicy. For this next part, I'm going to be reading from my notes, by the way, because I just want to get the numbers accurate because it's just that crazy. So around February 1324, Mansa Musa buckled up with 60,000 men to go to Hajj, 12,000 of which were slaves. Each one of them were carrying 5 bars of gold. That equates to 1.8 kilograms of gold. Let me just translate this to you a little bit. Each kilogram of gold today, is the day of recording this video, is worth 60,000 pounds. So that's like around, I don't know, that's probably like around 67 something dollars or something like that. But wait, let me just say it again. Each 1 kilogram is 60,000 pounds. To do the math real quick, this means that each slave was carrying 108,000 pound worth of gold. I'm not gonna lie, if it was me carrying that much gold, I'd just he has lots of gold anyway. I'd probably make more money staying with him. That's probably why lots of people stayed. Yeah, he'd probably give people a lot more than that. All right, I'm not great at math, but this next part took me a little bit longer to do, so hear this out. If we time the 108,000 pounds with the number of slaves that they were carrying these golds, which is like 12,000 slaves, that equates 1.3 million pounds worth of gold. That was just what the slaves were carrying. By the way, I don't want to expose myself here, but there were so many zeros that I had to Google how many zeros are in the billion. I don't think I'll ever see that much money. I don't think I'll ever need to read that big of a number, unless it's like in debt, which I hope not, because then I'll be in trouble. But can you imagine that? And the crazy part is that that's not even all. There were 80 camels in this parade to go to Hajj. Each one of them was carrying from 23, speculated, between 23 kilograms and 136 kilograms. Another math real quick. This one took me a little bit longer. That is 112 billion pounds minimum to 190 billion pounds maximum. All right, I'm not in this competition, but Bill Gates' net worth is $125 billion. He basically spent Bill Gates' net worth just on this PR campaign. I say PR campaign, the Hajj, on this Hajj. He basically spent someone's net worth. It's probably a country's GDPR, GDP, that's the word. He probably spends a country's GDP on this Hajj, which is crazy. Just guys, before we rush into saying, oh, he's probably like, I don't know, a royal or he's a king, he's probably just got it from like his country or whatever, let me enlighten you with this discovery that I made. The UK's royal family is worth around $70 billion, which I know is a lot of money, but we just said just the Hajj took about $10 billion minimum. So it's like not that much. This is according to Yahoo Finance, by the way. The Saudi Arabia royal family, which is currently are known to be the like richest royal family, they are worth $1.1 trillion. Pounds. I'm gonna confuse myself with dollars and pounds here. But yeah, they're worth 1.1 trillion pounds, according to credible resources, which is all gonna be in the description box, by the way. This man was so rich that next to his name, you know where they put the wealth estimates part? It says wealth indescribable. The second person next to him on that list is Augustus Caesar, which was the Roman emperor, right? And his wealth was estimated to be around 3.5 trillion pounds. So that means that this guy was like triple as rich as the royal family right now, just him. What do you even do with that much money? The greatest Hajj of all time, I suppose. But yeah, back to the Hajj. On this Hajj, he also had bands and musicians for entertainment and teachers and doctors in case they are needed. He also was very big on education. So he wanted all these people that he took with him to learn and educate themselves. And they weren't just doing it, for fun or education for free. It's almost like tuition fee for free. But they were even getting paid to travel with him. Let me just quickly set an alarm because I don't want to leave this on my face for too long. Before he started his travels, he told all the countries he was going to be crossing through that he's coming. I mean, can you blame him? He's basically, a king of another country. It took him 3 months to get to Egypt, which is like halfway through the journey. I'm so grateful for my 4-hour flights. But when he got to Egypt, the Sultan of Egypt at the time summoned him to the court. I mean, not court, I would say castles. He basically wanted to talk to him, but low-key, he wanted him to show respect and bow down. Mansa Musa knew that he'd have to kneel before him, and kind of understandably so. He's a sultan as well. Maybe not as rich, but he's a sultan as well. There wasn't much documented about Mansa Musa's personality, but as far as it goes, he kind of appreciated his status and he wanted it to be acknowledged. Literally anyone who would meet him or be in his presence would have to kiss his feet and throw dust over their heads, kind of just showing respects, It was also documented that he had an interpreter. Basically, if you want to speak to someone, he wouldn't acknowledge them directly. He'd speak to the interpreter, and the interpreter would talk to the peasants. Can you blame him though? Can you blame him? Anyway, this kneeling situation was not going to happen. He declined. He kept making excuses. He didn't say, no, I'm not going to go because that's disrespectful. You're visiting this country. But he kept making excuses. However, the Sultan was adamant and he kept sending messages for him to come to the castle, When he knew that he couldn't escape it anymore, he finally went to the castle and the Sultan was like, kneel before me. Mansa Musa was like, I kneel before no one but God. And the Sultan was like, all right, fine, fair. Let's just sit down and talk. So he sat next to the Sultan and they conversed for a very long time, it was speculated. And when he left the castle, he showered the general or the senior generals of the emperor at the time with gold and silk clothes and gifts from him. Listen, the guy was so generous that on his way, every poor person that he met, he gave them money. And honestly, I respect that because not a lot of rich people nowadays do that. They'd just be keeping it in the bank, So I have to respect that about his character, to be honest. But with this influx of people coming into the city, and the shop owners could not resist raising the prices, which created inflation. Everything became 2 and 3 times the price, except for gold. Yeah, you guessed it right. I guess the Sultan was grateful for that. 10 stops after Cairo, he finally arrived to Mecca. By the way, it was said that every Friday he built a mosque where he stayed to kind of leave a memory behind him. I feel like there's a lot of PR lessons we can learn from this man. But anyway, he stayed in Mecca. They welcomed him there. They threw festivals. They did that in every city that he visited, basically. He performed his Hajj, and before he leave, he asked the sheikhs of the city to give him scholars and sheriffs, because you know how much he cared about like education, to go back with him to his country so they could share their blessings with them. The sheikhs basically said, no, we will not do that, but we'll give you the freedom to ask them yourself. So he basically put the word out that he's taking some scholars and whoever knowledgeable about something back to Mali with him so he can teach everyone else, which I think is very smart, because a country is built on education. And if you want to sustain a country that is strong, you invest in educating the next generation. I mean, honestly, call me cliche, but I think that knowledge is worth way more than gold. But anyway, he recruited so many scholars and scientists that he had to borrow money on his way back from lenders so he can continue his journey home. This guy, with the crazy amount of money he came with, he spent so much that he had to borrow money to make it home. I'll let you sit with that thought for a minute while I go wash my face and come back. Guys, my face is loving this skincare routine so much. And this mask in particular, look at this. You can literally see the reflection of everything behind the camera on my forehead. All right, let's continue. This next part genuinely cracks me up. On his way back, he realized that he plummeted the price of gold due to his visit. So he offered to buy a lot of the gold that he brought with him back from them. So basically give them the money so they still make money, but get the gold from them. He thought that he was stabilizing the market, but the price of gold spiked again, creating an even more unstable market, because if you have gold, essentially you wouldn't know what to do with it. Also on his way back, when he got home, he paid all the lenders in full as soon as he got home. The economy basically crashed. I still just can't get over the fact that the budget was so big and he still managed to need to borrow money. Basically, this guy single-handedly destabilized the Mediterranean financial market for over a decade. And guess what? This PR campaign paid off, because in 1375, the famous Catalan Atlas put Mali on the map and put him, specifically, Mansa Musa, as the king of gold. This is the picture that was wildly spread around Europe. So what I didn't realize, when people say that he put his country on the map, they mean literally. His greatest Hajj is the reason his country is on the map. All right, let's talk about after the Hajj. He went back, he established madrasas and universities and mosques, and stories from his Hajj spread around the world. So more and more people were interested to come to Mali, mainly more of the people who were seeking knowledge in the universities, making Timbuktu, where he was residing, a known city for the progression that it had. And soon it was recognized as the trading center by Venice, Genoa, and Granada. I'm so sorry if I butchered these names, I probably did. He lived the rest of his life improving the city, and it wasn't known exactly when he died, but it was speculated it was around 1337, because that's when his son took over the throne. However, his son was not an effective leader, and soon he was taken over by his uncle, and that destabilization of the city and the country made Mali and Timbuktu a prey to feast on, and they started getting foreign threats, but they were too busy fighting the throne. So sadly, they lost the throne, and the city suffered great wars and concerns from like east and west, wanting the treasures hidden in Timbuktu. Following that, there were lots of tribal and religious warfare until it was all covered and destroyed by sand. Unfortunately, with the demolishment of this area, many scholars fled and took their books with them. The trade that the area once was famous for is no longer there, and it actually became very risky and dangerous until around 1825, when France colonized and all hopes of regaining that power that Mali once had fully disappeared. And unfortunately, now it became one of the poorest countries in the world, which is very, very sad. I'm not gonna lie, it's very sad that a country could go from being one of the richest countries in the world and being the country where the richest man ever lived is from, to being one of the poorest countries today. There's so much irony in that, and it just goes back to my point about knowledge and education. And if you don't know, or you ensure the knowledge of the generations after you, you cannot promise the continuity of the wealth. Yeah, and that is just throughout history repeats itself. That's why I really like history. That's why I found myself in this very weird position where I want to talk about stories from history. But yeah, this was the story of the richest man to ever live. Have you ever heard of him before? Did you know some of the things that I said today? Were you surprised by anything that I mentioned today? Please let me know. Any comment or feedback would be very helpful. This is my very, very first episode of this series, which I had a lot of pressure on myself to make it perfect, but halfway through I was kind of like, just like, F it, I'm just gonna do it. So I do recognize that there's a lot of work to do and probably more like, I don't know, nicer background to work on, but for now I just really appreciate any feedback that you'd have for me, and let me know if you have a specific topic you want me to cover next, and I will see you next week on my next episode. See you, bye.